Hello and welcome to this first project on our 90s Coder starter pack. Today we'll be making a pixel generator. So here is what it's going to look like. Also, just to quickly let everyone know that all these projects in this playlist are going to be available on the Code Cove hub, GitHub. All the code is there so it can help you follow along these tutorials. So do check it out. I'm very excited to have this available for all of you now. All right, back to the project. As you can see, we've got two sliders to scale the image up and down and one to change how pixelated it is. We've got our pixelated title, which we'll make at the end. With our generator, we've got our upload section, we've got our canvas to put our image into, and we've also got the option to save. So let's get started. So we're only going to be using HTML, JavaScript and CSS for this. Our title will be Pixel Art Generator, and then we'll link our style sheet and we can get moving. So we'll temporarily have a H1 heading just so we can screenshot it later and then make it pixelated with our generator. We'll add a P element and we'll just briefly describe what it is. So simply upload your photo and let the magic happen. And it is magic, really. And then we're going to use a input wrapper to put the rest of our code in up into our canvas. And we'll do another div for styling. So this is going to be our file div. It's quite tricky the way that we want to set this out to just use buttons. So we're going to use labels and we're going to style it like a button. This way we can kind of have a little bit more flexibility of what we're doing, and we can make it look like a button at the end of the day, but give us a little bit more freedom. Just because of space, I'm going to add a title here to put only PNG and JPEG images are supported. Just because I don't want to put all of this on a page, it will just come off if someone hovers over it. And then yeah, we'll link this to our input element, which we've got the ID of upload for, and we're only going to accept PNG and JPEG images as well. And then yeah, next to it we'll just put no file selected, which will be adding the name of the file when they select it later on as well. And we've got our two sliders underneath, so we'll start with the pixel bar. So again, we're going to have a label here, we're going to have a input element, but this one's going to be range, so it'll be a slider. And then the min and max, if you haven't used it before, it's how low the slider is going to go down, how far up the slider is going to go. And this is going to be our pixel value. And we're going to automatically set it to 32. We'll be doing it later. Same sort of thing for the size bar as well. We'll be doing a slider. The min will be 10, the max will be 200, and we'll set the standard at 100 as well. And this will allow our image to go up and down. We'll use a label as well here, just like we did for the others, and then make sure we have our canvas underneath with ID canvas so we can access it with JavaScript, and then our button, our save button, and we'll just have the text as save image. So we'll use a button for this last one because we're not doing too much with this, and we'll link our script underneath. Also, I missed a div. I didn't close the file div, so I've just added that in as well. If we don't add that, it will mess up our styling later. All right, let's go on to our CSS. I don't think I've ever skipped out this step for a project. I don't even know if it makes a massive difference. So we'll start with the body. First off, we just want to set the color that we want. So we'll have color white. We want the text to pop out. Don't worry, we'll change the background color in a minute. And then yeah, here's the font we want. We're going to do some WebKits. Position relative, we'll be using this later on. So I added a comment here just for us to remember later on. This is the fallback for the center section. So this color is going to be in the center of our page. We're then going to be using different colors for the side just to make the middle pop out, as you can see from the demo at the beginning. And then we'll just set the height here and also overflow, so everything is on show here, otherwise it would be behind the next sections. And yeah, before and after, so we are going to be adding the sides in here. So as you can see, it's also going to be responsive, and we're just going to make it slightly lighter than the center. Again, just labeling these here because if we do decide to change the color later, it's handy to remember which one's which. Let's start working on the title. So again, we're just using the H1 element for the moment. We will later on be using an image, but this is just to help us see what it's going to look like. For the P element, pretty much same thing. Just going to set the color and then make sure there's a nice margin between the title. And then input wrapper, if you remember, is holding our pretend buttons and our sliders and everything. Make sure this is display flex because we want to do columns with this later on as well, so they're neatly next to each other, and we want to make sure there's space between them as well. For our file div, size bar and pixel bar, we're going to do display flex, chuck them in a column and do align item center, so we should have a nice neat line here on the side. Do this for the rest of them as well, and then we can start styling the scale and pixel slider. Just because we've got the dark theme here, it's always nice to change the colors around with these as well, and add some more colors that will pop out. Maybe some green here as well. And we'll actually add a little box shadow as well. Again, nothing too crazy here that we're doing. On the upload button, we'll add a pointer for when we go over it, and we'll also change the color here, and we'll add a hover in a second. I'm going to have slightly different text for the file name, and we're also going to just make sure the font size matches the other font size on the page as well for our labels. So we're going to have our canvas is going to be on the screen visible before we upload an image, just to make the page look a little bit less empty, to be honest. I think it's a nice little touch to have it underneath, and it goes with all the colors. Then lastly, our save button. Again, nothing really crazy here, just changing the color, making sure it sits nicely on the page and it's responsive. That's pretty much it for the CSS. We'll add the styling for the image later on once we add the image, but for now, this is everything that we need. Anything else we'll add, we'll just add it as we go. All right, let's start from the very top on our JavaScript. Just like we did in our planning earlier, we can start laying down the things that we need. Most of the things we're writing down on the setup is just going to be our elements and global variables, which we need to link them to everything in the HTML document. So we want to create a new image object. What it's going to do basically is where the uploaded image will be stored, so we can draw it later on. Then we need to access the elements that are on the HTML document. So we'll have the let file equals upload, canvas will equal canvas. And then if you haven't used canvas before, every time you do canvas, we always do CTX. It's basically the canvas context, the 2D drawing interface. We'll be using this to do shapes and images. Then underneath, we need to access our slider, and then we'll do the same for the pixel slider and also the scale value as well, which as you've seen, I've played around with it a bit. It just stays with the 100% at the moment, but we will update the value as we move the bar a little bit later on. And then we also need the original width and original height as well. We need us to remember the image's original size. This will help with scaling it later on, just so it doesn't mess up the slider. Yeah, we'll use this to calculate the final size in the canvas later on. And then also, we want to display the file name once we upload it. We're going to do a bunch of different things to this later. Like, we're also going to have it not be too long as well, because we don't want it taking up the whole page. All right, first we're going to deal with the file upload, because that's basically the heart of our project, is uploading the file. And then we're going to mess around with it. So we'll add a event listener here. We'll set file as the eTarget files, so this gets the selected file from the input, so whatever one the user uploads. And we're going to say if file, so checks if there is a file that the user has picked. We're going to set the name to the file name, so that'll upload on the page. And then we'll say if the name length is more than 16, then it's too long, and we're going to shorten it for style reasons on the page, because it looks a lot nicer that way. And then we're basically going to set the name here is set out in a specific way, and we'll just add ... so they know there is more to their file name. Then at the very end, we're going to do file name display, text content, and we're just going to update it underneath the label button. Right, next is the image load and store size. So this is going to upload the image directly into the memory and prepare it for drawing. So we'll do another add event listener, and we'll do change, and we'll use eTarget again. So we'll say const file is eTarget, so basically the same as we did earlier, but yeah, we're going to use the file again, and then we're going to say image source URL create object URL. Just going to convert the file to a temporary local URL and load it into the image object. And then we're going to say image on load. And we're going to create another function here. We're going to use our original width and original height here to set the new original width and height as the width and height the image comes at. And then we're going to draw image, which triggers the first draw of the image onto the canvas. So the user will be able to see it and we will be able to see it. Right, and then we're going to add the event listener input and call draw image on slider and pixel slider as well. So every time the user moves a slider, we want to update the canvas. We are going to make our function draw image in a second, but basically when the slider changes, call draw image again with the new value. So this means they can constantly change the image as much as they want. So we'll do function draw image. And then next we want to see if image source is empty, so if no file was chosen, or image complete is false, so if the image is still loading, return. Then we'll say let scale equals slider.value divided by 100, so it gets the current value of the scale slider as a number between 0 and 100 and converts it to a decimal, so 0.75 would be 75%. The canvas size must be updated based on how much the user wants to scale the final output. We'll use this later to calculate new width and new height, so how big the final image will be on the canvas. And then pixel size, so we'll just do pixel slider and then we'll access value. It's going to determine how many pixels we want in the downscaled low res version of the image. So basically the way that our pixel works in this project is we shrink the image to just a few pixels and then we stretch it back out again. And then scale value text content is going to be slider value, so just so we can update it on the screen. And we're also going to say that the pixel value is the same as what the pixel slider should be showing. So now these two are going to work in unison with each other. So this is for our pixelation of the image. We're going to have a temp canvas. And we're also going to have temp CTX as we need that when we have a canvas of any sorts. And then we're going to say the temp canvas width is the pixel size. And same for the height, but we're going to times it by the original height and original width. So it's going to maintain the original aspect ratio so the image doesn't get squished. So if the image is kind of like a square or rectangle, it's going to stay like that when we shrink it and then stretch it back out again. Then yeah, the size of the canvas determines how many block or pixels the image will reduce to. Smaller canvas equals more pixelated look, so we can mess around this later and I'll show you what we mean. But when it's really pixelated, it just ends up going one color. But maybe some people will want that. And then we're going to draw the image into the smaller canvas. So our temporary canvas, we're going to use temp CTX draw image for this. And this is what's going to be shrinking our image when we want to pixelate it. As we've got our, if you remember on our HTML, we had a value pixel that we set to 32. It's automatically going to set it to that. So it'll be pixelated the second that we upload it. Again, we're going to use original width, so we're going to set the new width and new height to original width or height and then times it by the scale. So as the scale is moving up and down, it will also resize the image as well. And again, it will keep the ratio the same as we've using the original width and height to times it by scale. And then we're going to use these values to reset the canvas width and height, so we need it to grow with the image. Then we're going to access CTX again and say image smoothing enabled false. This will be counterintuitive if we set to true. I believe it can make the image go blurry and we don't want that. And yeah, we want to finally draw the actual image to the canvas. So we'll do CTX, draw image, temp canvas. And we're basically done now. The only thing left to do is our save button. So we'll do document get element by ID, and then we'll access save button for its ID, and then we'll do an event listener straight onto this as well. Const link, because it's not going to be changing, document create element, and then we'll have an anchor element. And this will simulate a download link and it will go straight to the user's downloads. And then we're going to have a default file name. So every time you download something, it's going to be called pixel art PNG. And yeah, we're going to set the link, and then we're going to convert the canvas context into a PNG image. And yeah, when the link is clicked, it's going to add it to their downloads. And that is basically it for our JavaScript. So if we continue here and go back onto our pixel art generator, I've got a screenshot of the title that I'll add here. And as you can see, I can kind of change how big I want it, how pixelated I want it. Personally, I still want to be able to read the title, so we're not going to mess around with it too much. So yeah, I saved it as pixel art onto my download. I'm going to change the name of this to pixel logo just to help me later know what it is that I'm styling, just in case I want to add more pixel art to this page. So we'll get rid of the H1 and we'll add that to the page, and then we'll get rid of the H1 styling. And then our image styling, we will add where the title was, and yeah, display block, we'll center it with the margin auto, height auto as well. And voila, that is our lovely website. I mean, you can mess around with the themes and everything on here. There's a few other little things you can add to this. Maybe you can add a drag and drop feature, so you can just drag the image on. That'd be pretty handy actually. So yeah, we actually needed this for our next project, which is Asteroid Dodger. Here's a little photo of our Asteroid Dodger app that we're going to create. This has been project 1 out of 4 on our 90s Coder starter pack. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next project next week. Thank you. Bye.